Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins History, that dives deep into the stories behind the coins we often overlook. You may have walked past one 100 times without even realizing it, but what if I told you that a tiny copper coin, just 1 cent in value, could actually be worth a life-changing amount of money today? That's right. Today, we're taking a closer look at one of the most beloved and iconic pieces of American currency, the Lincoln Wheat Penny. And more specifically, we're going to focus on the 1950 edition, a coin that has captured the imagination of collectors around the world. This isn't just a coin. It's a piece of American history. It's a relic of a different era. And in some cases, it's a hidden treasure. So grab your magnifying glass, sit back, and get ready to learn everything you need to know about the 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny, and how it could turn out to be one of the most valuable coins in your collection. Let's rewind the clock to 1950. America was adjusting to a new post-war reality. The Second World War had ended just a few years prior. The economy was growing, families were settling into suburban life, and the baby boom was in full swing. The Korean War had just begun, and the Cold War was quietly heating up. This was the world into which the 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny was born. Now, if you've ever held one of these coins in your hand, you'll know that it looks unassuming. It's small, it's copper-colored, and it feels like pocket change, because, well, it is pocket change. But under the surface lies a fascinating design with deep symbolism and artistic flair. On the front side, the obverse, you'll see the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln. This design was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. Sculpted by Victor David Brenner, Lincoln's portrait marked a historic moment as the very first time a real person, not a symbolic representation of liberty, appeared on regular U.S. coinage. His profile is dignified, quietly powerful, and instantly recognizable. Just to the right of Lincoln's bust is the minting year, 1950. And underneath the year, if you're lucky, you might see a tiny letter. That's the mint mark, and it can make all the difference. Depending on where the coin was minted, it may bear a letter D for Denver, an S for San Francisco, or it may have no letter at all, which means it was minted in Philadelphia. Each of these mint marks has a unique story and a different level of rarity, and collectors pay close attention to which version they have. Some mint marks are incredibly rare due to low production numbers or minting anomalies. Now flip the coin over, and you're greeted by the stunning simplicity of the reverse design, 2 stylized wheat stalks curving along the edges of the coin, framing the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. Above those words, you'll also see the Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. This wheat-back design is why the coin is often lovingly referred to as the wheat penny. This classic reverse was in use from 1909 until 1958, after which the Lincoln Memorial replaced the wheat stalks. So by 1950, these pennies were nearing the end of their artistic era, and that makes them all the more collectible today. Now you might be wondering, what makes a 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny worth more than a penny? Why do some of these tiny copper coins command such sky-high prices on the collector's market? Well, it all comes down to a few important factors: rarity, condition, mint mark, and whether or not the coin has any unique errors or anomalies. Let's start with condition. A heavily circulated coin, one that's been passed from hand to hand, spent in stores, jostled in jars, will show wear. The details will be faded, the edges softened, and the overall look will be dull. But a coin that's been carefully stored away, never used in daily transactions, and kept in pristine, mint state, that coin can be worth exponentially more. Collectors use a grading scale to rate coins, with MS or mint state being the gold standard. A 1950 Lincoln Wheat Penny in mint state 65 or higher is a rare and beautiful find. Next, let's talk about mint marks again. The 1950 pennies from Denver and San Francisco are generally more common than the Philadelphia version. But even more important than the mint location is whether or not the coin contains any errors. That's right, mistakes from the mint can make your coin more valuable. These could include double dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, or variations in the metal composition. One famous example is a 1950 Lincoln wheat penny with a dramatic double die error. The doubling occurs when the coin is struck more than once with a slight misalignment, leading to ghosted or shadow-like doubling in the lettering or design. These coins are extremely rare, and collectors will pay a premium for well-documented examples, but here's the kicker: while most 1950 wheat pennies are common, especially in circulated condition, there are a few truly exceptional specimens that stand in a class of their own. These are coins that were perfectly struck, perfectly preserved, and feature rare minting errors that make them one of a kind. In numismatic circles, these are the holy grail of wheat pennies, and now, the moment you've been waiting for: how much could one of these coins actually be worth? Believe it or not, one of the most pristine examples of a 1950 Lincoln wheat penny, with a rare error and an exceptionally high mint state grade, was once valued at $85,000. Yes, you heard that right. $85,000 from a single copper coin that most people wouldn't even bother to bend down and pick up off the sidewalk. So next time you're rummaging through an old jar of coins, a shoebox from the attic, or even your grandparents' old coin collection, pay close attention. That little Lincoln wheat penny from 1950 might just be more than a piece of history. It could be your ticket to an incredible payday. Today, we're going to dive into the story of a simple copper coin, 1 cent in face value, that has become a favorite among collectors and coin enthusiasts across the globe. It's none other than the 1953 Lincoln wheat penny. Now, before you assume it's just another old coin, hold on, because some versions of this penny have sold for thousands, and in one incredible case, for tens of thousands. We're talking about a humble cent that could pay off your student loans, buy you a brand new car, or even cover a down payment on a house. And yes, we're going to reveal exactly how much it could be worth at the end of this video. So make sure you stick around, you don't want to miss this. Let's begin by stepping back into the year 1953. Post-war America was thriving. Dwight D. Eisenhower had just taken office as president. Televisions were becoming household staples. Elvis Presley hadn't even released his first record yet. It was a time of optimism, industry, and innovation. And during this pivotal moment in American history, the United States Mint produced millions of Lincoln wheat pennies, each one a snapshot of that era. Now, let's talk about the design, because the Lincoln wheat penny is more than just currency. It's a piece of art, and every detail tells a story. On the front of the coin, the obverse, you'll see the dignified profile of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. This portrait was designed by Victor David Brenner and has become one of the most iconic and enduring images on American currency. It first appeared in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and it marked a historic shift in U.S. coinage. It was the first time a real person, rather than a symbolic figure, appeared on a regular issue American coin. Lincoln faces right, his gaze steady and thoughtful. Above his head, the words, "In God We Trust," are inscribed in bold letters. To the left, the word "Liberty." And to the right, the date, 1953. Just beneath that date, depending on where the coin was minted, you might see a small letter. That letter is the mint mark, and it's one of the most important features of the coin. In 1953, the Lincoln wheat penny was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. If there's no letter under the date, it means your coin came from Philadelphia. If you see a small d, that's Denver. And if there's a tiny s, that stands for San Francisco. Now flip the coin over, and you'll see the reverse side, one of the most beloved and classic designs in U.S. coin history. 2 elegant wheat stalks curve along the left and right edges of the coin, framing the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. Above those words is the Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, which means, out of many, one. It's a powerful reminder of unity in diversity, and it speaks to the American spirit. This reverse design, known as the wheat back, was in use from 1909 to 1958. That means your 1953 Lincoln wheat penny falls near the end of the wheat design era, making it a desirable piece for collectors trying to complete their sets. But here's where things get even more interesting: most 1953 Lincoln wheat pennies were minted in the hundreds of millions. That makes them relatively common, in circulated condition. These are the pennies that passed through hands, jingled in pockets, and were spent at soda fountains and corner stores. They've got history, yes, but value? Not much. Maybe a few cents to $1 at best, but not all 1953 pennies are created equal. Some were preserved in near-perfect condition, untouched by circulation. Others came out of the mint with unusual features, called errors, that make them incredibly rare and highly sought after. These include things like double die errors, where parts of the coin's design appear doubled, creating a ghost-like shadow effect. Then there are off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and even die cracks. These kinds of minting mistakes are what collectors dream of. If you happen to have a 1953 Lincoln wheat penny with one of these errors, and it's in exceptional condition, also known as mint state, then you might be holding something truly special. Grading plays a huge role here. Coins are rated on a 70-point scale, with MS 60 and above being considered mint state. An MS 65 or higher coin, with sharp detail, lustrous surfaces, and no noticeable marks, is incredibly rare for a coin from this era. The better the grade, the higher the value. Now, let's talk about mint marks again, because not all of them are equal. The 1953 S and 1953 D pennies are interesting to collectors, but they were produced in larger numbers than the Philadelphia mint pennies. Still, some San Francisco mint coins have been found with repunched mint marks or subtle die variations that add significant collector value. But even more than mint marks and errors, it's the combination of condition and rarity that makes a coin truly valuable. You could have a flawless 1953 penny with a rare minting error, and if it's graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC, the value can skyrocket. So, how much could your penny be worth? Well, if it's a regular circulated coin, it's probably only worth a few cents. Maybe $1 or $2 if it's in decent condition. But if it's a high-grade, uncirculated version, or better yet, one with a rare error or a dramatic doubling, and it has been authenticated and graded, the value increases substantially. And then there are the outliers. The legendary finds. The once-in-a-lifetime discoveries that leave collectors speechless, and one of those discoveries? A 1953 Lincoln wheat penny, minted in San Francisco, struck with a rare die error, preserved in nearly flawless condition, and graded at an exceptionally high mint state level, was sold for an eye-popping total of $78,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $78,000. For a single 1-cent coin. Imagine finding something like that in a jar of old change. It's happened before, and it can happen again. So here's what you should do. If you have any old pennies, especially those from the 1950s, take a closer look. Check the date. Examine the mint mark. Look for errors. And if you think you found something special, consider getting it graded. That little copper coin you've been ignoring for years might just be your lucky break. Today's video might just change your mind forever, because today, we're stepping back nearly a century to talk about one of the most intriguing coins in U.S. history, the 1936 Lincoln wheat penny. This isn't just any old coin. This is a tiny, copper-colored time capsule from a different America, an America in the middle of the Great Depression, struggling to rebuild, survive, and dream again. Now, here's the kicker: some of these coins, under the right conditions, are worth far more than you could ever imagine. We're not talking a few dollars here. We're not even talking hundreds. Stay with me until the very end, and I'll reveal just how jaw-droppingly valuable this little coin can be. You're going to want to check your change jars after this one. So let's rewind the clock. The year is 1936. Franklin D. Roosevelt is president. The country is slowly climbing out of the Great Depression. Radios are broadcasting swing music and baseball scores. Unemployment is falling, and optimism is beginning to return, but money is still tight. Pennies mattered in 1936. Every cent counted, and that's what makes the 1936 Lincoln wheat penny so special. Because every single one of these coins that passed through the hands of Americans was part of a nation's slow comeback story. They were used to buy loaves of bread, bottles of milk, newspapers, and more. And today, they've become treasured pieces of U.S. numismatic history. Let's talk about design. If you've ever seen a wheat penny, you know how simple yet powerful its look is. On the obverse, or front side, is the strong and solemn profile of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. His portrait is framed by the words, "In God We Trust," at the top, "Liberty," to the left, and the minting year, 1936, on the right. Just under that date, you might see a small letter. That's the mint mark, and trust me, it's very important that in 1936, Lincoln pennies were struck at 3 different U.S. mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Here's how you can tell which one your penny came from. No mint mark. It was made in Philadelphia. A small d. That stands for Denver. A small s. That's San Francisco. The mint mark can be the difference between a common coin and a once-in-a-lifetime collector's dream. Now let's flip the coin over to the reverse side, and there it is, the classic wheat ears design. 2 curved wheat stalks hugging the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. Just above that, you'll see the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. It's not just a design, it's a declaration. A symbol of unity. A proud statement from a country pulling itself back together, one step at a time. This wheat reverse design was in use from 1909 to 1958, making the 1936 coin part of an iconic era in American coinage. But here's where it starts to get really interesting. Not all 1936 wheat pennies are created equal. You see, millions were minted, yes. But not all of them survived the test of time, and even fewer survived in excellent condition. The vast majority were heavily circulated. They've got scratches, dull coloring, worn-down features. But every once in a while, a 1936 penny is found that looks almost untouched, a coin that somehow escaped daily use, tucked away in a drawer, a coin folder, or even buried away in a forgotten bank bag. And some of these pristine examples are worth far more than a penny, but condition is only part of the story. The real excitement comes when minting errors are involved. You see, 1936 is famous among collectors for one specific type of error, the double die. This happens when the die used to stamp the coin is misaligned slightly between strikes, causing certain letters or numbers to appear doubled. On the 1936 penny, this doubling is most often seen in the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date itself. If you have one of these 1936 double die Lincoln cents, you might be holding a numismatic treasure. And it doesn't stop there. Other error types include off-center strikes, where the design isn't properly aligned, die cracks, creating odd raised lines on the coin, repunched mint marks, where the mint letter was punched more than once. Collectors love these kinds of errors. Why? Because they're rare, they're fascinating, and they turn each coin into a one-of-a-kind piece of minting history. Now let's talk grading. If you want your coin to be valuable, it needs to be in good shape. Coins are graded from poor, P1, all the way up to mint state, MS 70. A regular 1936 wheat penny in circulated condition might only be worth a few cents. But a mint state, high-grade coin, especially with a dramatic error, can be worth hundreds, thousands, or even more. But here's the part you've been waiting for. One particular 1936 Lincoln wheat penny, featuring a rare double die error, in nearly flawless mint state condition, verified and graded by a professional numismatic service, was valued and sold at auction for a staggering $106,000. Yes, you heard that right. $106,000 for a penny. Just imagine. A tiny copper coin once used to buy a piece of candy, now worth more than most luxury cars. It's the kind of story that keeps collectors searching, keeps dreamers digging through jars of spare change, and keeps the mystery of old coins alive. So what should you do if you have a 1936 wheat penny? First, don't spend it. Second, check for a mint mark. If you've got a Denver or San Francisco version, it might be more valuable than the Philadelphia issue. Then, look closely for any signs of doubling, off-centering, or odd markings. If something looks unusual, don't clean it. That can actually lower its value. Instead, get it examined by a reputable coin dealer or grading service, and if you're lucky, if your coin checks all the right boxes, you could be holding your very own piece of hidden treasure. Today's video might just have you digging through your change jar tonight. because today, we're focusing on a true piece of American history that might just be hiding in plain sight. We're talking about the 1954 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a small, 1-cent coin that could, under the right circumstances, be worth far more than you'd ever imagine. Yes, we're talking thousands. But before we get to that number, let's take a step back and uncover the incredible story behind this humble piece of copper. The year was 1954. Dwight D. Eisenhower was leading the nation as president, the Cold War was intensifying, and American families were settling into the golden glow of the post-war boom. Rock and roll was just around the corner. Gas was 20 cents a gallon. And a penny? It could still get you a piece of candy, a gumball, or maybe even a phone call, but this wasn't just any penny. The 1954 Lincoln Wheat Penny had something special. Even though millions were made, only a small number of them would survive in pristine condition. And among those, an even smaller handful would contain rare characteristics that would one day catch the eyes of collectors, and spark bidding wars at major coin auctions. Now, let's talk about the design, because it's more than just money. It's a work of art with a legacy. On the front of the coin, you'll find one of the most recognized faces in American history, Abraham Lincoln. This design was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner, Lincoln's profile was the first real human face to appear on everyday American coinage. Until then, coins typically featured allegorical figures like Lady Liberty or other symbolic images. At the top of the coin reads, "In God We Trust." To the left of Lincoln is the word Liberty, and to the right is the year, 1954. And just beneath the date, in tiny print, you might see a letter. That's the mint mark, and it can make a big difference. In 1954, pennies were minted in 3 different locations. If your coin has no letter, it came from Philadelphia. A small D stands for Denver, and a small S means it was minted in San Francisco. Each mint produced a different number of coins, and that matters when it comes to rarity and value. For example, San Francisco produced fewer 1954 pennies than the others, meaning 1954's Lincoln Wheat pennies are especially prized among collectors. Now flip the coin over to the back, and you'll see the iconic wheat reverse. 2 tall stalks of wheat curving along the left and right sides of the coin, surrounding the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. Above that is the Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, which translates to, out of many, one. This wheat design was used from 1909 until 1958. After that, the reverse was changed to depict the Lincoln Memorial. So by 1954, this classic design was just a few years from retirement, adding to the nostalgia and value of coins from this era. But design alone doesn't determine value. There are 4 things collectors really care about: condition, rarity, mint mark, and errors. Let's start with condition. This is where grading comes in. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect, mint state coin. Most 1954 pennies were used in everyday transactions. They passed through thousands of hands, got tossed into pockets, fell on floors, and were forgotten in piggy banks. As a result, most are scratched, faded, or worn. A coin like that might be worth a few cents, maybe a couple of dollars if it's in decent shape, but a mint state 65 or higher coin? That's a whole different story. These coins have sharp detail, full luster, and virtually no flaws. The color is bright and clean. These are the coins that make collectors' hearts skip a beat. Now let's talk rarity. Philadelphia minted over 71 million pennies in 1954. Denver produced more than 251 million. San Francisco? Only 19 million. That's a huge difference. Fewer coins means fewer survivors, which equals higher demand. That's why 1954's coins in excellent condition are considered premium finds. But here's where things get really exciting: errors. Every now and then, a coin gets struck incorrectly at the mint. Maybe the die shifts. Maybe the planchet, that's the blank metal disc, gets off center. Maybe the mint mark gets punched more than once. These mistakes, while rare, are what collectors live for. One of the most famous types of errors is the double die. That's when the coin gets stamped twice, but slightly out of alignment. The result? Letters, numbers, and even Lincoln's face can appear doubled, almost like a 3D illusion. On a 1954 penny, a double die error is incredibly rare. If you have one and it's authentic, congratulations, you're holding something truly valuable. Another type of error is a repunched mint mark, where the tiny D or S was punched more than once, leaving a sort of ghost image. These two can raise a coin's value significantly, especially if the coin is in near-perfect condition. Now, you might be wondering, how can I tell if my coin is valuable? Great question. Start by looking for a mint mark. Then examine the coin closely for any signs of doubling or irregularity. If anything looks odd, don't clean it. Cleaning can actually lower the value. Instead, take it to a professional coin dealer or get it graded by a respected service like PCGS or NGC. If your coin is circulated but in decent shape, it might be worth a few dollars. If it's uncirculated, with a good grade and a rare mint mark, it could be worth significantly more. And if it has an error? You're in a whole new ballpark. So, after all this history, design, and detail, what's the highest price ever paid for a 1954 Lincoln wheat penny? Here it is, the moment you've been waiting for. One extremely rare 1954 Lincoln wheat penny, featuring a dramatic mint error, preserved in pristine mint state condition, and verified by top grading experts, was sold at auction for a jaw-dropping total of $78,500. Yes. That's right. $78,500 for a penny. A coin that once sat in someone's pocket, maybe dropped into a soda machine or forgotten in a drawer, is now worth more than a luxury car, a college tuition, or an entire year's salary. So before you dismiss that little copper coin as worthless, think again. There could be a small fortune sitting right under your nose. Today, we're about to change your entire perspective, because we're about to shine the spotlight on a coin that many people overlook, but coin collectors around the world are constantly searching for. I'm talking about the 1949 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that may look ordinary at first glance, but when you know what to look for, it can be extraordinary. And yes, there are some versions of this 1949 penny that have sold for more than most people earn in an entire year. So, stick around, because we'll be revealing the jaw-dropping price tag near the end of this video. You won't believe how much a single penny, just 1 cent, can actually be worth. Let's take a journey back in time to 1949. America had just emerged from World War II. Families were adjusting to a new world, soldiers were returning home, and the baby boom was well underway. There was a sense of optimism in the air. TVs were making their way into homes, cars were evolving in design and power, and America was experiencing one of its greatest eras of growth. And while that was happening, the United States Mint continued to quietly produce one of the most recognizable coins in the country's history, the Lincoln wheat penny. The 1949 Lincoln wheat penny may seem like a small relic of the past, but it's a beautiful representation of American pride, endurance, and artistry. Let's start by appreciating the design. On the obverse, or the front of the coin, we see the stately image of President Abraham Lincoln, one of the most beloved and respected figures in U.S. history. This design, created by Victor David Brenner, was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate Lincoln's 100th birthday. It was groundbreaking at the time because it was the first time a real person had been featured on circulating U.S. currency. Above Lincoln's head are the words, "In God We Trust." To the left, you'll find the word "Liberty." And to the right, of course, is the date, 1949. But here's where your attention should really focus. Just beneath that date, you may find a tiny letter. That small mark? It can change everything. This is the mint mark, and in 1949, there were 3 mint-striking pennies. If there's no letter, that means your penny was minted in Philadelphia. A small d indicates it came from Denver. A small s stands for San Francisco. Each mint produced different quantities, and that's important because lower production numbers typically mean higher rarity. For example, in 1949, the Denver Mint produced the highest number of pennies, while the San Francisco Mint produced the fewest. That means if you come across a 1949 penny, especially in high-grade condition, it could be far more valuable than a common one. Let's flip the coin and take a look at the reverse side. What you'll see is the beloved wheat reverse design, two graceful wheat stalks curving along the left and right sides of the coin, cradling the words, 1 cent and United States of America. Above that, in classic Latin, are the words, e pluribus unum, which means, out of many, one. This reverse design was in use from 1909 to 1958, making the 1949 coin a part of this historic and highly collectible series. The wheat penny series remains one of the most collected coin types in America, and for good reason. Each coin tells a story, each has a history, and some have incredible value. Now, let's talk about what makes the 1949 Lincoln wheat penny special to collectors. There are 4 key factors that determine a coin's value: condition, mint mark, rarity, and errors. First up, condition. Coin collectors use a grading system that ranges from poor, P1, all the way up to mint state, MS 70. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. Most 1949 pennies were heavily circulated, used for candy, bus fares, newspapers, and lunch counters across the country. So, the vast majority of these coins today are scratched, worn, and faded. But a small percentage managed to survive in pristine, mint state condition. And those, well, those are worth a lot more than just a cent. Next, mint marks and rarity. As we mentioned earlier, Philadelphia minted over 217 million pennies in 1949. Denver? About 153 million. But San Francisco only minted around 64 million. That's significantly fewer. Combine that with condition, and suddenly, a 1949 penny in uncirculated condition becomes a very rare and very desirable coin. But here's the big twist: errors. This is where things get really exciting. Errors happen when something goes wrong during the minting process. Maybe the die was misaligned, or the coin was struck off-center. Maybe there was a doubling of the image, which creates a shadowy, ghost-like effect on the lettering and numbers. Or maybe the mint mark was punched incorrectly, repunched or mispositioned. These rare flaws make certain coins one of a kind, and believe it or not, some of the most valuable 1949 Lincoln wheat pennies ever sold were coins that had clear and dramatic doubling, or those struck with die cracks, planchet flaws, or repunched mint marks. But it's not just about having an error, it's also about how well that error is preserved. That's why grading is so critical. A dramatic error in a low-grade coin might be worth a few bucks. But that same error on a coin graded MS 65 or higher? Now we're talking serious money. So, if you've got a 1949 wheat penny, here's what you need to do: check the mint mark. Look for the S or D beneath the date, inspect the coin for unusual markings. Doubling, off-center strikes, or anything that looks off. Evaluate the condition. If it still has its original luster, minimal scratches, and sharp edges, it may qualify as uncirculated. Get it graded. If you believe you have a rare variety, submit it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. The experts there will tell you what you really have. Now, the moment you've been waiting for. While most 1949 Lincoln wheat pennies might only be worth a few cents to a few dollars in circulated condition, there was one exceptional coin, flawless, brilliant, mint state, and containing a very rare doubling error, that shocked the collecting world when it hit the auction block. This particular 1949 penny, graded by professionals, authenticated for its unique characteristics, and preserved in extraordinary condition, was sold for a staggering $83,500. Yes, you heard that right. $83,500 penny. It's the kind of story that reminds us why people collect coins in the first place. It's not just about metal and mint marks, it's about the hidden gems, the thrill of discovery, and the stories that history leaves behind in your hand. So go ahead, grab that old jar of coins, check those childhood piggy banks, and dig through your change drawer. You never know what you might find. That 1949 Lincoln wheat penny? It might just change your life. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of rare coins and big surprises, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a hidden treasure. Drop a comment below and let us know, what's the oldest penny in your collection? Until next time, Keep looking, keep learning, and always remember, sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest value. Happy collecting.